And Naomi, in the book, she's tough on Kerik, accusing her of using gotcha moments. Here's some of what she wrote. Out of the many, many hours of tape, I had bad moments, just like everyone else. I choked on a couple of responses. And in the harried pace of the campaign, I mistakenly let myself become annoyed and frustrated with many of her repetitive and biased questions. Want to react, Naomi?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I do. I do. I have to say, you know, there was every reason for me to want to cheer this woman on, not because I share her politics. I don't, Larry, but because it's true that it would be a first to have a working class woman, not Ivy League educated, a mother of many children, you know, in the prime of her life as a mother, running for such high office and possibly winning and becoming a heartbeat away from the presidency. But again and again, when she had the opportunity to rise above the fray, to keep her eyes on the prize, to talk about issues facing Americans who are suffering in ways now that are unprecedented and were at the time that she was running, health care, global warming, unemployment, 2 wars, she chose to play the victim card, and she chose to play a feminine kind of poor me, they're all gunning for me kind of role, and she's not done. That Katie Couric interview, Larry, went viral. It got 3.8 million hits. It could have been the thing that swayed the election, and it was independents watching it, not just people on the far left. What did she do in that interview? Katie asked her to name a newspaper that she had read, or to name a magazine, to give one indication that she is informed and curious about the state of the world that she's claiming to be able to lead. And she couldn't do it, and she wouldn't do it, and she was given many, many chances. Katie came back once, twice, 3 times in that segment, and this woman couldn't say, well, I've read the Wall Street Journal, or, you know, I read my local paper in Anchorage, and that is distressing.
Okay, I gotta take a break.
Cheer for her.
Okay. We'll be right back with more on Sarah Palin's new book and what's in it right after this. We're back with our panel. She says, does Sarah Palin, at one point, campaign manager Steve Schmidt wanted to try and dictate her diet. She writes, I'm a 44-year-old healthy, athletic woman raising 5 kids, covering a large state. I thought as his words faded into a background buzz, sir, I really don't know you yet, but you've told me how to dress, what to say, how to talk to a lot of people, not to talk to, and who my heroes are supposed to be, and we're still losing, and now you're going to tell me what to eat. Mary Madeline, you've been an advisor on campaigns. Is that dirty pool, or is she just laying it out?
You know, I want to go back to something Nancy said earlier. Every campaign I've ever been on, and there's 7 or 8, they're always a pressure cooker, and you always remember it after the fact from your perspective. It's like,
but you don't write books about it.
Yes, people write lots of books about it. As Nancy said earlier, she had stuff to get off, but the book was much larger. I think it's much broader, much larger. It's about her whole life. It is about her family and her faith and those other organizing principles of her life. But what we all understand and what the interviews have been about so far have been these more public episodes. But if one reads the whole book, they'll see something much larger, and they will not see a victim. I love how my liberal friends always tend to project their doctors of victimology.
I know.
She says quite the opposite. She wasn't a victim. Her opposite view in the book is that she had something to offer, and they're restraining her.
Katrina, go ahead.
Yeah,
Katrina?
well, I was going to say, Larry, if you had been doing the interview this afternoon, which gave softball interviews a new meaning, I am sure when Sarah Palin spoke about how 2012 wasn't on her radar, you would have pushed back. Talking about doctors of victimology, though, let me just talk about the one reason we're keeping an eye on Sarah Palin, who isn't leaving the building, the political building, is what she did by injecting herself into a healthcare debate, which requires reason and thought and humanity, where she did the death panel card. This is a woman who, as governor of Alaska, wanted end-of-life counseling, a very humane thing for families, for my mother, for my father, and for her to inject herself into this debate is an example of a small minority using a conspiracy and hijacking a debate this country needs to have. So I think she is a very toxic force. She is a potent brand. It is a testament to the good judgment of the American people that we're looking at her with 9% would support her for president, and independents running to cover.
I would love to
jump in. Here's what she said about her daughter's... Here, hold on. Here's what she said about her daughter's pregnancy, and we'll get a comment. Watch.
When you realized it was public about Bristol's pregnancy, that Bristol called you and said that she'd seen it on the news?
She had seen it on the news, and she was quite devastated, and perfectly honestly, she was quite embarrassed. She called me in tears and saying, "Oh, Mom, not just Wasilla, do they know what's going on in my life, but now the whole world knows, Mom, and should this be news? Should it be a top news story?" And I said, "No, it should not, and I would hope that my children would be kind of excluded from the controversy and any of the tabloidization of what's going to go on a campaign." But I knew right off the bat then with that episode that the kids were going to be a part of it, good, bad, or ugly.
Nancy, was that fair?
Well, I think most of us who are veterans were kind of shocked at the breaking of the last remaining element of civility that had existed in presidential politics, and that is that you pretty much left the kids alone. And even then candidate Obama stepped forward a couple of times and said this is just not appropriate. But it was a feeding frenzy. If I could speak to Katrina's comment earlier about health care, if you are looking at independent voters, first of all, anybody has the right to interject themselves, any American, into that debate. And independent voters are in droves against the thing that's being shoved out, force-fed down their throat right now. So before you acquaint or try to equate, rather, Sarah Palin's interjection into the health care debate as somehow illegitimate, I would pay attention to what independent voters are thinking about that as well.
Just to jump in, Nancy.
Let me get a break and come back. I think she was saying that she was saying one thing with one eye, that she was counseling the aging, and then voted, then saying that that's a terrible thing to do. Anyway, we'll get back to that. By the way, would you buy Sarah Palin's book? That's tonight. Quick vote question. Go to CNN.com/King. Back in 60 seconds.